Every forest has secrets, but deep in the mountains of Black Hollow, there's a cabin nobody talks about anymore. Not because it's haunted, not because people disappeared there, but because every single person who entered Cabin 13 was found dead, or worse, never found at all. Tonight's story is based on a place locals refuse to visit after sunset. A place where the walls whisper names and something inside waits for new guests. So before we begin, turn off the lights, lock your doors, and stay till the end, because after hearing what happened in Cabin 13, you may never sleep peacefully in a cabin again. And if you love horror stories that keep you awake at night, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, because your next nightmare is already waiting. It started with 5 friends: Ethan, Maya, Lucas, Sophie, and Daniel. They were college students looking for one final adventure before graduation, a cheap weekend trip, a remote forest, no signal, no people, just nature. At least, that's what they thought. The rental website barely had any information about the place. Only one blurry picture: a wooden cabin standing alone in the middle of dead trees. Under the image were 4 words: Cabin 13, stay if you dare. Daniel laughed when he saw it. Perfect horror movie setup. Nobody else thought much about it. By the time they reached Black Hollow Forest, the sun was already setting. Rain hammered against the windshield. The deeper they drove into the woods, the quieter everything became. No animals, no insects, nothing, just silence. Then, suddenly, their GPS stopped working. The screen went black. At the exact same moment, the car radio exploded with static. Maya jumped. What the hell was that? Lucas smacked the radio until it died. That's when they saw it. The cabin, standing between the trees, tall, rotting, dark, and somehow far bigger than it looked in the photos. A wooden sign hung near the porch. Cabin 13. The number looked scratched in recently, as if someone kept replacing it. The group unloaded their bags quickly as thunder shook the sky. The moment Ethan touched the front door, it slowly creaked open by itself. Nobody was inside, but the cabin was warm. Too warm, like someone had been living there moments ago. Sophie forced a smile. Okay. Creepy points awarded. Inside, the cabin smelled like mold and wet wood. The furniture looked ancient. Dust covered almost everything, except one thing: the dining table, perfectly clean. In the center sat 5 plates. Exactly 5. The group stared silently. Daniel laughed nervously. Maybe the owner prepared for us, but no food was there. Just empty plates, waiting. Then Maya noticed something strange. There were no mirrors anywhere in the cabin. Not in the bathroom. Not in the bedrooms. Nowhere. Who lived without mirrors? She whispered. Nobody answered. That night the storm grew worse. Wind slammed against the walls. The lights flickered constantly. At around midnight, Lucas woke up to whispers, very faint, coming from inside the walls. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he heard words. Lucas, his eyes snapped open. Someone was whispering his name. Lucas? He sat up slowly. Everyone else appeared asleep. Then came scratching. Scratch, scratch. Inside the wall, beside his bed, Lucas grabbed his flashlight and aimed it toward the sound. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then a loud knock came from inside the wall. Bang! Lucas nearly screamed. "Guys, wake up." Nobody moved. Another knock. Bang, bang, bang. The wall began shaking violently. Dust poured from the cracks. And then he heard breathing, heavy breathing. Right behind the wood, Lucas stumbled backward. The wall suddenly split open, and a pale hand shot out. Lucas screamed. Everyone woke instantly. The hand vanished back inside the tree wall before anyone else saw it. What happened? Ethan shouted. Lucas pointed at the crack in the wall, shaking uncontrollably. "There's someone in there." But when Ethan checked, the wall was solid. No crack, no damage, nothing. The others assumed Lucas had a nightmare. Everyone except Maya, because while the others argued, she noticed something written on the ceiling above Lucas's bed, words that weren't there before. "Don't let IT out." The next morning, Daniel was missing. His bed was empty. The front door stood wide open, fresh muddy. Footprints led into the forest. The group searched for hours. Finally, they found Daniel near an abandoned well behind the cabin, standing completely still, facing away from them. "Daniel?" Sophie called. Slowly, he turned around. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot, and his mouth stitched shut with black thread. Sophie screamed. Daniel suddenly charged at them, not running, not walking, jerking unnaturally like a puppet. Ethan tackled him to the ground. The stitches tore apart instantly. Blood poured down Daniel's chin. Then Daniel whispered something, a sentence none of them would ever forget. "It lives in the walls." Before collapsing unconscious, they dragged him back inside, but things only became worse. That evening, the cabin changed, hallways became longer. Doors appeared where none existed before. One bedroom now had no windows, and every clock inside the cabin stopped at exactly 1:13 a.m. Maya finally found an old journal hidden beneath loose floorboards. The pages were filled with warnings. The cabin was built over a mine in the 1800s. Workers vanished underground. One survivor claimed something lived beneath the earth, something that could imitate voices, something that entered people slowly through whispers. The final journal entry read, "It cannot leave cabin 13 unless invited." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cabin. "Help me." It sounded exactly like Sophie, but Sophie was standing beside them. Then they heard another voice, a child crying upstairs, then laughter, then scratching. The walls started moving, breathing, pulsing like flesh. Black liquid seeped from the cracks, and all the lights died. Darkness swallowed everything. The group panicked. Ethan grabbed a flashlight. The beam revealed writing covering every wall. Thousands of words scratched into the wood. Names, dates, messages. "It wears their faces. Don't fall asleep. Nobody survives." Then they heard footsteps upstairs, slow, heavy, dragging. T-U-M-P. Thump, thump. Something was coming down the stairs. The flashlight flickered, and they saw it, a tall figure. Its limbs twisted backward, its skin stretched tightly over bone. But the worst part was its face. It kept changing. Daniel, Maya, Lucas, Sophie, Ethan, one after another, smiling. The creature opened its mouth impossibly wide, and all 5 of their voices came out together. "Stay with us Lucas ran first. Big mistake. The hallway stretched endlessly. No matter how far he ran, the front door never got closer. Then the walls burst open. Dozens of pale hands grabbed him, dragging him screaming into the darkness inside the cabin itself. His screams continued for several seconds, then suddenly stopped. Silence. One by one. The others disappeared, too. Sophie vanished in the bathroom mirror that suddenly appeared behind her. Daniel walked willingly into the basement after hearing his dead mother's voice. Maya was pulled beneath the floorboards, while Ethan watched helplessly. Soon, only Ethan remained, alone. The creature stood before him, smiling with Maya's face. Then Lucas's, then his own. Ethan finally understood. The cabin wasn't haunted. The cabin itself was alive. Every victim became part of it. Their voices, their faces, their souls trapped forever inside the walls. The creature whispered, "You invited us in." Then all the walls opened at once. Thousands of arms reached toward Ethan, and the screen goes black. 3 days later, police finally arrived after the families reported the group missing. They found cabin 13 completely empty. No bodies, no blood, no signs anyone had ever stayed there. But one officer noticed something strange scratched into the dining table. 6 plates now sat there instead of 5, and carved beneath them were 6 names: Ethan, Maya, Lucas, Sophie, Daniel, and the officer's own name. That night, cabin 13 vanished from the forest. Some say it still appears during storms, waiting for travelers, waiting for new guests. Because once you enter cabin 13, you never truly leave. So tell me, would you spend one night inside cabin 13? Or would you run the moment you heard whispers inside the walls? Comment below. And if you enjoyed this nightmare, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more terrifying horror stories every week. Sleep carefully tonight, because sometimes the voices you hear in your walls might not be your imagination.